You were so afraid of interpersonal relationships that you came to dislike yourself. You've avoided interpersonal relationships by disliking yourself. Can do is to get the person first to accept myself now, and then, regardless of the outcome, have the courage to step forward. In Adlerian psychology, this kind of approach is called encouragement.
Encouragement?
Yes, I'll explain systematically what it consists of once our discussion has progressed a little further. We're not at that stage yet.
That works for me. In the meantime, I'll keep the word encouragement in mind.
Let's think about your problems. You say that at present you notice only your shortcomings, and it's unlikely that you'll ever come to like yourself. And then you said, I'm sure that no one would want to get involved with a guy as warped as me. I'm sure you understand this already. Why do you dislike yourself? Why do you focus only on your shortcomings, and why have you decided to not start liking yourself? It's because you are overly afraid of being disliked by other people and getting hurt in your interpersonal relationships.
Do y'all agree with that? Here we go.
What do you mean by that?
Just like the young woman with the fear of blushing, who was afraid of being rejected by the man, you are afraid of being negated by other people. You're afraid of being treated disparagingly, being refused, and sustaining deep mental wounds. You think that instead of getting entangled in such situations, it would be better if you just didn't have relations with anyone in the first place. In other words, your goal is to not get hurt in your relationships with other people.
We talked about the guys who removed themselves from the dating market. This actually applies to you all. And that's why I put this video or this part of the book in this conversation. Could some of that be true? You just don't want to get hurt, so I'm just going to remove myself from the dating market completely. Because from what I see on social media, these women will hurt me. I don't want that, so I'm going to leave. Could that be true? Some of it? Just a little bit?
Now, how can that goal be realized? The answer is easy. Just find your shortcomings, start disliking yourself, and become someone who doesn't enter into interpersonal relationships. That way, if you can shut yourself into your own shell, you won't have to interact with anyone. And you'll even have a justification ready whenever other people snub you.
So the justification is, all these women are crazy out here. It's definitely the women. So I'm just going to remove myself. Could some of this be true?
That it's because of your shortcomings that you get snubbed. And if things weren't this way, you too could be loved.
Haha, well, you've really put me in my place now.
Don't be evasive. Being the way I am, with all these shortcomings, is for you a precious virtue. In other words, something that's to your benefit.
Ouch, that hurts. What a sadist. You are diabolical. Okay, yes, it's true. I am afraid. I don't want to get hurt in interpersonal relationships. I'm terrified of being snubbed for who I am. It's hard to admit it, but you are right.
As you see how this pertains to these conversations. So in this instance, when people say I'm just going to be myself, you actually have to like who you are. Okay, so if you're comfortable in your own skin, as they say, you actually have to like the outcomes of being in your own skin. If you don't like the backlash or the response from people that you get from being yourself, then that's when you become one of, the people that essentially remove themselves, because you don't like the response that you get from being yourself, because we're all taught to just simply be yourself and you'll be perfectly fine. But if being yourself doesn't give you the outcomes that you want, specifically on the dating market, are you willing to change, or are you willing to fix certain things so you can get better outcomes? And for the most part, from what I've seen, most men aren't willing to make those changes, and they just want women to change and like them for the way that they are. And we know that women aren't going to like you the way that you are. And if you're okay with that, then that's when you, like you said, you just got to become happy with yourself. If you're not, then you probably need to change some things. Okay, same thing with women. You guys understand it very well. I'm talking to the guys. You guys understand this very well when we talk about women being plus size. You'll see a plus size woman going crazy and saying that all the men on the dating market are chopped. I seen that video. All the men on the dating market chopped. They ugly. But everybody looking at her like, lady, you pushing 300 pounds. You don't have no place to talk. You can't get the outcomes that you want. We understand that, but when we talk about men, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna just be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm perfectly fine. But this book will actually challenge you to do some inner work, to ask yourself some questions. Can I improve? Am I truly happy with who I am right now?
Admitting is a good attitude. But don't forget, it's basically impossible to not get hurt in your relations with other people. When you enter into interpersonal relationships, it is inevitable that to a greater or lesser extent, you will get hurt and you will hurt someone too. Adler says, to get rid of one's problems, all one can do is live in the universe all alone. But one can't do such a thing.
It's live in the universe all alone. With social media, that's like a contradiction because everything is readily available. And that's why I asked a question earlier for the guys that remove themselves from the dating market. If you remove yourselves, then why are you still in dating spaces, dating conversations? And that probably has to do with social media. So I absolutely give grace because you like, man, I got a phone and I want to hear what, I want to be involved in the conversation, even though I'm not in the dating market. And I was like, I never understood that. I used to respond to people like, well, if you don't care about the dating market, then why are you still commenting about the dating market? You should be off somewhere fishing or something. But it's like, nah, I'm just going to use this. I'm just commenting because, and I'm like, oh, okay, it is what it is. So let's continue.
Wait a minute. I'm supposed to just let that one slip by? To get rid of one's problems, all one can do is live in the universe all alone? What do you mean by that? If you lived all alone, wouldn't you be horribly lonely?
Oh, but being alone isn't what makes you feel lonely. Loneliness is having other people and society and community around you and having a deep sense of being excluded from them. To feel lonely, we need other people. That is to say, it is only in social contexts that a person becomes an individual.
If you were really alone, that is, if you existed completely alone in the universe, you wouldn't be an individual and you wouldn't feel lonely either?
I suppose the very concept of loneliness wouldn't even come up. You wouldn't need language, and there'd be no use for logic or common sense either. But such a thing is impossible. Even if you lived on an uninhabited island, you would think about someone far across the ocean. Even if you spend your nights alone, you strain your ears to hear the sound of someone's breath. As long as there is someone out there somewhere, you will be haunted by loneliness.
In certain instances, like I said, I'm not a guy who would want to be lonely, but there are some guys that hang their hats on being lonely. You can ask yourself, are you actually coping with loneliness? Right? And you just like, hey, it's something that I got to do because I may not be willing to change. Or it could be, I'm okay with who I am now and I don't want to change, and I'm perfectly fine with that. If that's the case, cool. But social media makes being lonely tougher than it was in the past because you see everybody playing and having fun or whatever on a day-to-day basis, and it's tough for you to be alone or lonely, and you see happy couples and sometimes people who have a disdain for women or disdain for men, they'll say something crazy. Yeah, it's all fine until they cheat on you or something like that. So yeah, it's something that you can think about because I personally don't think that we were put on this earth to be alone. And that's why I don't argue the point when I hear both men and women say it, especially, when a woman is on the dating market and she say, I don't want marriage. I'm not going to argue with her because men will find some use out of you if you still out here running around in these streets. Okay? So it's no reason to argue. If you believe it, cool. But you're the only one that got to go back to your house and face yourself in the mirror and ask those hard questions. Are you crying at night because you really want something, but you're trying to be strong in front of the public eye, in front of social media by telling everybody else and then trying to convert other women to be lonely or hate men just like you hate men so you can have some company when y'all eating hungry man dinners together or something like that? Is that what's going on? We can't tell. And we can't question you about it because we don't know, because the facade that you may be putting on is believable, but when you get home, it may be tough. Same thing for the guys. If you think that, okay, I'm gonna just be alone, like I said, I don't think it's we're not put on this earth to be lonely. That's just me. Interpersonal relationships are very important. So, in my opinion.
But then you could just rephrase that as, if one could live in the universe all alone, one's problems would go away, couldn't you?
In theory, yes. As Adler goes so far as to assert, all problems are interpersonal relationship problems.
Can you say that again?
We can repeat it as many times as you like. All problems are interpersonal relationship problems.
All right. Carte Blanche said, so if I'm not interested in dating or done with the scene currently, should I not have an opinion with the current state of dating? Tell me why. No, seriously, no. I want to know, why would you have an opinion on the state of current dating? Because you don't care. I'm gonna clip this up. I would love for you to explain why. Because if you have an opinion on it, then that would lead me to believe that you would want some things to change so you can enter back into the dating market. And if those things do change, then you're open to dating. Is that a fair assessment or a fair assumption? Because you said opinions. So yeah, my opinion on the dating market is this, and this. And I'm assuming those opinions come with solutions. So if certain things change, are you willing to enter back into the dating market? And that would be, in my opinion, that would be you coping with your loneliness, because you really don't want to be out of the dating market. You want to be here, but you just want things to change. And that's perfectly fine. So yeah, so like I said, I would want to know why you would have opinions on the dating market if you have no intention on coming back to the dating market.
This is a concept that runs to the very root of Adlerian psychology. If all interpersonal relationships were gone from this world, which is to say, if one were alone in the universe and all other people were gone, all manner of problems would disappear.
That's a lie. It's nothing more than academic sophistry.
Of course, we cannot do without interpersonal relationships. A human being's existence, in its very essence, assumes the existence of other human beings. Living completely separate from others is, in principle, impossible. As you are indicating, the premise, if one could live all alone in the universe, is unsound.
That's not the issue I am talking about. Sure, interpersonal relationships are probably a big problem. That much I acknowledge. But to say that everything comes down to interpersonal relationship problems, now that's really an extreme position. What about the worry of being cut off from interpersonal relationships? The kind of problems that an individual agonizes over as an individual, problems directed to oneself. Do you deny all that?
Well, Carte Blanche said, good point. And let me be clear, Carte Blanche, because I talk about a myriad of things on my channel. So I'm not telling you, hey man, you should be in my channel. Nah. This book, we talking about this book. We do the little pop the balloon. I know that's dating and stuff, but we do so many things on this channel. But I'm just more so talking to the guys that still don't mind, putting crazy stuff in the chat. But then, and I'm going off of my experience as a content creator, I've seen guys do that. They'll have opinions and I'll question, like, man, like, hey, why'd you say that or whatever? Well, I don't care. I'll remove myself from the dating market. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, well, why are you here? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, why are you talking about this in the chat? So yeah, I always wanted to know why. So he said, no, I'm an avid follower. I was just curious. Bro, I'm curious. That's why I'm curious as to know why. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm trying to learn. I'm not judging anybody. Who am I? I'm just a dude, but I'm trying to understand. I learn from y'all all the time in the chat. So I'm just trying to understand the process, the thought process of a person who's removed themselves from the dating market, but still talking about dating and relationship conversations. I just never saw a point, but maybe you do, and hopefully y'all can teach me. And that's just not the carte blanche. That's to anybody. If you have an answer, or what you think an answer could be, let me know. If it's entertainment and you just like, I just want to get my shit off, cool. I would question, your is that beneficial to your mental health? Because but if that's the reason, who am I? So, okay.
There is no such thing as worry that is completely defined by the individual. So-called internal worry does not exist. Whatever the worry that may arise, the shadows of other people are always present.
But still, you are a philosopher. Human beings have loftier, greater problems than things like interpersonal relationships. What is happiness? What is freedom? And what is the meaning of life? Aren't these the themes that philosophers have been investigating ever since the ancient Greeks? And you're saying, so what? Interpersonal relationships are everything? It seems kind of pedestrian to me. It's hard to believe that a philosopher would say such things.
Well then, it seems there's a need to explain things a bit more concretely.
Yes, please do.
You see the young guy, he's pressing him, but his, like I said, his cynicism and his pessimistic thought process is good for the book. So, okay.
If you're going to tell me that you're a philosopher, then you've got to really explain things. Or else, this makes no sense.
You were so afraid of interpersonal relationships that you came to dislike yourself. You've avoided interpersonal relationships by disliking yourself.